What's up, people? So we're back after I didn't have power last week. If you live near the Great Lakes, you know what I'm talking about. Let's see, how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. Let's just stop to the music for a little bit. So, now that we are back, control tab, oh wait, sorry about that. So, now that we're back, a couple things I want to address. I'm trying out some different settings on my microphone, because I discovered I don't like the way the mic sounds, so we're trying some things out, and if you guys want to give feedback on what it sounds like today versus what it sounded like, what was it now, 2 weeks ago, go watch my AFC South and West stream and tell me what you think about it, and then rewatch today's show and tell me what you think about the audio here. The next thing I want to address is the schedule for the weekend. I know I said I wanted to have a show Saturday night, but I'm going to be a petty bitch and say I'm going to move it to I'm going to move it to Sunday at noon because I want to watch some college football this weekend. So that's happening. And then I'm also, let's see, third thing I want to address, I'm experimenting some things with YouTube chat. So I have a poll in chat right now asking who's going to win the Florida-Utah game. So curious to know people's thoughts on that. So that is all the show stuff that I wanted to address. Let us address some football stuff because that's what we're here to do, and we've only got a limited window to do it. So we are going to be fucking voice crack. We're going to be covering the NFC East today, and the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about them Cowboys. The 8-8 gods in a 17-game schedule. So they had, I guess you can say they had a quiet offseason, minus a couple names that were involved with them. First off, they lost Brandon Cooks from trades this year. He jumped over to the Texans in the offseason, so because we already addressed that 2 weeks ago, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I do want to bring it up that Brandon Cooks is no longer in Dallas. Colts fans, if you're watching this, I told you that we weren't going to poke fun at you at the time when we covered you guys. But today, you guys are fair game because you had Stephon Gilmore, who was traded to Dallas. So let's take a look at Stephon Gilmore here. So Stephon Gilmore started out in Buffalo in 2012. So he's been around. Granted, he's going to be 33 heading into this year. I think he's 33. I don't know what his birthday is, but he's pushing his mid-30s. And looking at where he highlights don't work. Damn. All right, so looking at where he started, he was the starter in Buffalo pretty much when he came in. Not a ton of interceptions, but, I mean, he's a cornerback. Okay, we can get over that. But the thing that worries me is looking at his time in New England. This is where he really started to make his name. 20 passes defended. He even forced a couple fumbles here. Where's his tackle numbers? Lower tackle numbers. This is what we want to. This is what I want to see. I don't mind cornerbacks getting a lot of tackles. I don't like safeties getting tackles, but cornerbacks getting tackles, I'm okay with. I still want to see him defend more passes, maybe get more interceptions. I mean, look at 2019. 6 interceptions this year. And he actually managed to get 2 touchdowns that year also. But where am I going with this? So, Dallas, it's really tough with Stephon Gilmore because he's had so much time to prove himself. And granted, he has proven himself. He is one of the top cornerbacks in the league by name. But when you look at the numbers, does it show? Not really. 2019 was by far a career year for him. So I think what Dallas should be looking for is they need to see if they can get 2020 form. This little stint in Carolina, not too hot. Little stint in Indianapolis, Again, not too hot. Really didn't do much of anything. I don't even recall hearing his name last year. So that should say a lot. But the other thing is staying on the field. He has missed some games here and there. 2021, I get it. He only played in 8 games. But, I mean, for a guy who's coming off 2 really, I guess that 1 really good year. But still, for a guy coming off some good years in New England, that ain't good. So, yeah, if you're Dallas, you're hoping that Stephon Gilmore can get himself back to form. In the draft, Dallas picked up Mozzie Smith out of Michigan, Luke Schoonmaker out of Michigan also, and a linebacker, DeMarvion Overshown. I'm hoping his name doesn't contribute to his talent. But DeMarvion Overshown, 3rd round out of Texas. Because they're always back. So we're going to move on to the Giants. Like I said, Dallas had a fairly quiet offseason, so didn't want to spend too much time on them. The Giants picked up Tommy Sweeney out of free agency. Really didn't trade anything this year. But the big one I want to talk about, wide receiver Jamison Crowder. He's a very solid player. I'm not going to say he isn't. All right, don't give me shit. Jamison Crowder is a very solid player, but I don't see him being a game changer. Now, I'm not looking at 2018, and I'm not looking at 2022, because he missed pretty much, he missed most of the season, we'll call it. Now, looking at his statistics here, 600 yards his rookie year, 800 yards, 700, a couple down years, but again, 2018, we're not counting that. 800 yards in 2019, 600 yards 2020, but then he drops to 400 yards in 2021. So, Jamison Crowder, like I said, very solid player. I'm not expecting him to be the guy in New York because, let's be honest. He's never hit 1,000 yards. In all fairness, he really hasn't come close to 1,000 yards. He's only gotten 70 receptions once. We can probably call this about 80 if we wanted to. And his touchdowns. He doesn't get a lot of touchdowns. 7 touchdowns in 2016 is good. Back-to-back years with 6, but I want to see more. I remember Jamison Crowder being a very big name, but he really has nothing to show for it. So I think what the Giants should expect is this team is going to live and die by Daniel Jones. And let's be honest, Daniel Jones hasn't really been that great a quarterback. Not at 17 overall pick. So, I mean, they probably could have waited. Actually, was he? Whatever. Yeah, I don't think Daniel Jones ever should have gone in the first round, but this team's going to live and die by him. And Jamison Crowder should help with that. Again, I don't foresee him being a big difference, but it's better than nothing. Now, the Giants drafting. I don't understand how they draft because Deonte Banks, cornerback, John Michael Mitchell, whatever it's pronounced, John Michael Schmitz, we'll say, center. Okay, I can kind of see that. And then Jalen Hyatt, wide receiver. What are they doing? Why are they not drafting the bigger positions? And I know this draft class heading into this year wasn't the hottest draft class, but I mean, these are some very piss poor picks. I don't know that they really needed the cornerback this year. I think they need to start from scratch because this rebuild has been all over the place, especially after they traded Odell Beckham a number of years ago. I really don't know how to judge the Giants because they are just all over the damn place. It's like I'm looking at the fucking Cleveland Browns again. Anyways, we are going to move on to the Philadelphia Eagles coming off that Super Bowl appearance. They're hoping to get back to that. Now, my thoughts with the Eagles, I never really considered... What is going on? All right. So, I never really considered Philadelphia to be contenders last year. Granted, yeah, they did start 11-0, but... Well, 11-0, I think, Pittsburgh. They started undefeated for a number of weeks, but I never looked at the team and said, this is a very solid team. They should go all the way. So I think if you're Philly, your job is to prove that last year's run was not a fluke. So what did they do in order to get that? Well, they picked up DeAndre Swift. And we're going to circle back to him. We're going to circle back to DeAndre Swift because we're going to be talking about Detroit in the second half of our show. And I feel like poking fun at Detroit. So they picked up DeAndre Swift. And then they also picked up Marcus Mariota. That's the one that supposedly he's done because he did not have a very good preseason by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm going to try something here. Instead of giving you my thoughts on Mariota, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you his stats here. And I would like you guys to tell me, what do you think of Mariota? You know, started off in Tennessee, spent a couple years with the Rams, and then he had that season in Atlanta. I've always been harsh on Mariota, but I want to know what you people think. I'm curious. I've never asked for people's thoughts, but I want to know what you guys think about that. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and then I'll circle back to this probably this weekend when we do part 2 of the offseason. So yeah, take a good look at that. As we do that, we're going to briefly touch up on their free agent signings. Philly was able to pick up Terrell Edmonds and Greedy Williams out of free agency. Terrell Edmonds, I I don't think he ever did anything for the Steelers. And as for Greedy Williams, I don't know how much he's developed. Having to watch this dude play for Cleveland every week, I don't know how much he's developed. So I'd be a little concerned about that. In the draft, they picked up Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, both first-round picks out of Georgia. So I think if you are Philadelphia, yeah, you have an argument that you're trying to make a Super Bowl push. We'll see. I'm doing predictions next week, so we'll see what happens there. The last team to talk about in this division is, of course, Washington. The big story out of Washington is that Dan Snyder is no longer the owner of the Commanders, as they are now known as. Honestly, who cares? We saw this coming for years. It's amazing how Dan Snyder managed to stay in the league for so long. And on top of that, Washington did nothing in the offseason this year, so I don't want to waste my breath on them. In the draft, though, they picked up Emmanuel Forbes, Jartavius Marvin, and Ricky Stormberg. So that is your NFC East. Like I said, I don't want to spend time on Washington because literally their story was they have a new owner. We're not going to focus on that on the show. We want to focus on what the players do, what the team does. We don't care about the front office people. So that's the NFC East. I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to cover the NFC North Division. So, like I said, I want to know your thoughts on Marcus Mariota, and we will be right back. for the second half of the show. Second half is going to be all about the NFC North. So let's just jump straight into it. So first team is going to be the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears are still halfway into their rebuild, so they're really not going to be doing much during the season this year, and really maybe even heading into next year. Do I expect them to go full tank again this year? Maybe, I don't know. But being right in the middle of a rebuild, I don't think we should expect much out of Chicago. In the offseason, though, they did bring in DJ Moore from the Panthers, and they also signed Dylan Cole. They had a couple of big names in the draft, though. Darnell Wright, I was about to say White. Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. Gervon Dexter out of Florida. Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami. And Zach Pickens out of South Carolina. So, they're building up that potential. I don't think we should expect much out of Chicago. But, hey, we'll see. Now, next team on our list is Detroit. Now, I mentioned in the Eagles segment that they had picked up DeAndre Swift out of Detroit, but I wasn't going to talk about him yet because I wanted to save that for the Detroit segment. So, let's take a look at that, shall we? DeAndre Swift. He's not played a full season yet. He only started about half the season last year, but when you look at the numbers, 500 yards, 13 games, 600 yards, 13 games, 500 yards, 14 games, and he's only starting half the games. I think Detroit really fucked up. Detroit is going to be missing out on a lot of potential from him. And it's interesting to think about because Detroit's known to have generational talents at running back, but then they get pissed off at the team and retire early. You can say the same about Calvin Johnson, even for him being a wide receiver. But still, something about Detroit, man. They know how to find running backs, they just don't know how to retain them. And I think we're seeing that case here with DeAndre Swift. So, for the Eagles, if he is going to be the starter, we should expect him to start 15 games, I guess. Maybe 14 games. But I want to see him start. I want to see him be good. He should easily hit 1,000 yards if Philadelphia can use him well. And I think we'll see him break past that 10 touchdown mark. If he's lucky, I'm going ballsy here, we might even see 15 out of him. So, Detroit, you fucked up. They also traded for Jeff Okudah out of Atlanta. And in free agency, they signed a kicker, Riley Patterson. That's the biggest free agent signing of the year. They also, excuse me, for real now. They also were able to sign C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who, surprisingly, coming from the Eagles. Funny how that works. So, let's take a look at him real quick. So, starting out in New Orleans, already, in his first year alone, starting half the season, defending 8 passes, 49 tackles. This is what I want to see out of a defensive back. 49 tackles. Again, a little high. I'd like to see it get to 45, but this is good. This is what we want to see. And look, he even forced a fumble. So that's what we want. 2020 and 21, still very good production here. Tackle number went up in 2020, but COVID year, whatever. 2021 brought it right back down to 46, which is good. Philadelphia, though, this is what we're looking at. 6 interceptions in 12 games. This is the other thing. CJ, he's not playing an entire season, has not played an entire season for a number of years. So, for Philly, getting 6 interceptions in 12 games, also only defending 8 passes. I want to see that number go up and the tackles go down. So, yeah, very good year. Now, with Detroit, here's what they are getting. He's going to have to return to form. All right. CJ Gardner-Johnson, I want to see him return to 2022 form. All right. That's going to be best for Detroit. Again, I want to see that tackle number going down. But if he can get, I'll go as far as saying 4 interceptions. 4 interceptions and limit his tackles to, say, 45, 50, then it's very possible we're looking at Defensive Player of the Year. I know that's asking for a lot, but, he has a couple sacks. So I think if he can get, let's say 3 sacks. How about that? If he can get 3 sacks on top of 4 interceptions and lowering his tackle numbers, I think Detroit is getting one of the most talented young defensive backs in the league. All right. The dude is only in his mid-20s, so he still has time to really break into his prime and break out as a superstar. So, Detroit, I think you guys are doing good there. You still fucked up with DeAndre Swift. You won't convince me otherwise. A lot of names in the draft here, though. Jamar Gibbs, Jack Campbell, which I'm surprised Detroit got him of all people. Sam Laporta and Brian Branch. Yeah, I still can't believe that fucking Jack Campbell fell to Detroit. Goddamn. Anyways, next team is the Green Bay Packers. I'm not going to spend time on them because I kind of went over them in the very first show on the channel, which it's not linked at the moment, but I'm going to link it in the description after the stream is done. That way everybody can go back and watch it. It was more focused on Aaron Rodgers as opposed to the Jets and Packers, but I kind of touched up on all of that. So that'll be linked in the description later on. I do want to talk about the draft, though, because I don't think I mentioned that. So in the draft, they picked up Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. The pick they used was the pick that they got from the Jets for Aaron Rodgers. They also picked up tight end Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State. Again, another Rodgers trade pick. And Jalen Reed out of Michigan State. So, again, I'm going to reference that video in the description. Which is going to lead us right into Minnesota. So, I had already talked about Zadarius Smith when I went over the Browns. But I have a buddy who's a Vikings fan. And if he's watching this, I'm going to rub it in your face a little bit more. So, why is it on DeAndre Swift? So, Zadarius Smith, as we mentioned before, one hell of a player. The Browns are going to use him on the defensive line. He's going to get a lot of tackles in Cleveland. He's also going to get a lot of sacks. So, Minnesota, you only had him for 1 year, and you traded him to Cleveland. So, yeah, Zadarius Smith, he's going to complement Myles Garrett very, very well. There's no getting around that. So that was the big trade that the Vikings had, was losing Zadarius Smith to the Browns. Free agency-wise, Brandon Powell. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Mariota, and I'm going to ask you guys what you think of Brandon Powell. Because I feel like he's becoming a journeyman, but I want to know what you guys think, so I'll give you guys some time to look at that. Next up, we're going to talk about Marcus Davenport. I'll show stats in a minute, but I don't care what you tell me about Marcus Davenport. Being a 14th overall pick when he was drafted, Marcus Davenport is a bust. All right, we're going to move over to him now. So, drafted in 2018, what about Marcus Davenport looks like the 14th overall pick? He had 1 year where he had 9 sacks, but he only played in 11 games. And he really hasn't done anything else for that matter. 39 tackles, pathetic. 31 tackle, he's a defensive lineman. He should be getting 40 tackles if he can stop the run. And if he can get through the O-line, he can get more sacks. But to be the 14th overall pick and have this kind of stat line, this is pathetic for any 14th overall pick. He has not had a breakout season. He will not have a breakout season. I don't care if Detroit has him. All I'm saying is Marcus Davenport's a bust. You will never convince me otherwise. Yeah, that's all. There's really nothing to talk about because he has shown us nothing to talk about. Okay, so the last thing is Jordan Addison, a rookie out of USC. That's really their big pick from the draft this year. Picked 23rd overall. Yeah, I don't know. 23rd overall, I think, is a reach. He had 1 good year out of Pitt, but then heading into 2022, he had an okay year, but he was picked 23rd overall for 1 good year and 1 okay year. 2020 is 600 yards, okay, that's fine. But I just don't see how he is. I don't see how he's a 23rd overall pick. I'm sorry. I just don't. So I think with Minnesota, I don't think they're trying to replace Justin Jefferson. That'd be a stupid move if they do. But I think what they should have done is really pick up wide receiver in the draft, in the draft. Wide receiver out of free agency other than Brandon Powell. Because again, I think as a journeyman, I think they should have picked up a bigger name. So my thoughts with Jordan Addison, though, I just don't see a 23rd overall pick. Maybe a late second, mid third, but I don't see him being a first round pick. But because he's a first round pick, here's what I'm going to do. Assuming he's going to be the starter this year, I'm going to give him 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. I'll even do the same if he starts next year, 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. So he's got 2 years to do that. 2 years to do that. So that's my take on the NFC East and the NFC North. We're not going to do predictions this week because I'm doing that next Wednesday. But yeah, that's my take. not as entertaining stream as the past couple ones have been, but these are two very, very boring divisions, especially when we already talked about the Packers. Excuse me. And, of course, the NFC East is tank division other than Philadelphia. That's all I can say. So, that's all I got for you guys. I guess the predictions I'll give you are for college football this year. For this week. Nebraska's playing against Minnesota this week. I'm going to say Minnesota squeaks out on that. And Florida versus Utah should be an interesting one. As long as they're better than the Notre Dame game, both of those games should be better than Notre Dame versus Navy. I'm going to go ballsy, and I'm going to say that Florida pulls an upset. Week 1, why not? Let's have some fun. So, yeah, I got Florida winning tomorrow, and then I've also got Minnesota winning tomorrow by a very slight margin, of course. There's other college football games going on this weekend as Week 1 is officially about to start. We're not really going to talk much about college football right now, but I didn't want to bring those up because it's tomorrow. So, anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. We are going to be back here on Sunday at 12 o'clock Eastern, where we finish up the NFC. So, that's all I got. We'll look forward to seeing you guys. Have a good one.